Okay. So again, we're going to start again from Peiches. All right, but let's just set it up. So we've been talking in this section about this unique creation called Adam, right, which is Guf and Neshama, body and soul. But more importantly, the way Ramchal sees it, he sees in the creation of the Guf and the Neshama the reflection of the entire Bria, right? And so not only the entire Bria, but so to speak, but even the godliness of the entire Bria, right? So in other words, where the infinite HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as he kind of emanates through the spheroids, which he created for the sake of the Bria, right? And all of these traits and qualities that exist, which were only created for the Bria, right? All of that is Hashem is reflected in the Adam, where the Guf has multiple parts, which represents again this spheroids, and where and the neshama has no parts, and it's more similar to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's also reflected in the fact that the neshama is, from a high, lofty place, right, and it's forced down into this guf, which is choshech, right. So all of this, right, is this major thesis of his that the body and soul of the Adam is like a microcosm of the entire creation, right? And also they're reflected in the two main midas within the creation, which is ha'oras ponim and haster ponim, right? Illumination and the hiding of light, right? So those are the two things that we was working with. And then he told us also that there's a third midah, which is because the two midas are constantly working together, right? And then when they come, the mixture of the two midas together is a third kind of midah of when they're working together, and it's also reflected in the creation of mankind, and that is through the face, right? Face has a mood, so mood is a revelation of the neshama, so to speak, right? And similarly, it's also reflected in the prophetic experience. That when a Novi experiences prophetic experience, he also has a certain sense of either a smiling face or a sad face or an angry face, which also gives him an indication of what is a Kodesh Baruch Hu, so to speak, quote unquote feeling, right? In other words, what's the nature of the nevuah? Is the nevuah positive, negative, right? Melancholy, whatever the nature of the nevuah is. Okay, so again, all of this is the same idea again. There's the Bria, and the Adam, which is within the Bria, is reflective of the entire Bria. Okay, then he told us something that we're still trying now. We're going to try to understand is that there are different, what he calls hadrogas. There are different levels. That's what he's going to talk about. He's going to talk about that this creation of Adam, which is a fusion of neshama and the guf, is going to have different stages of the neshama guf combination. Okay, there's going to be different stages of the neshama guf combination. At one extreme, there is going to be a time when only the neshama reigns and the guf is nearly nothing. At the other extreme, there's going to be a time, well, there is a time, which is now, when the guf reigns and the neshama is almost nothing. And there's going to be some time in between when the guf reigns a little bit and the neshama reigns a lot. Okay? And then he's going to split this into even more of a gradation, 5-level gradation. But the point is that there are three, right? He's looking at this neshama guf combination as having 3 distinct stages. All neshama, all guf, and something in between. Okay? And that's what we're going to learn. That's what we're going to learn today. So let's see. So this is Peiches. Omer HaSeichel, yeah? Omer HaSeichel. Hine ze yotzer rishono betoldes chiburi shtei hamidas heila ke'echad. So here's the first thing that we must speak about regarding the combination of the two midas together. What's the first thing that he's going to talk about? So for some reason, he wants to start not from the present time, but actually wants to start all the way from the end, Hamatzav hasholem, which is the station of perfection, Shiroy liyos le'odom, which is appropriate for an odom, bizman hashlemus ha'achron, at the time of the ultimate perfection, asher yiyaloi, that he will have. Okay, so first he wants to go towards the final destination, which is the ultimate perfection. Okay, va'adavar mavur mi'atzmoi, and it's self-understood, shehamadrega hatachlitis, that the ultimate, the last madrega, asher hi tia soif, which will be in the end, kol iloi ha'odam, of all the elevations of Adam, hi hanik ba'as rishona, it's the one that's initially kind of set up, right? In other words, it's the way, the ultimate goal is the thing that you think about first, right? Because from the very moment that the neshama was kind of exhumed from its source, it needs to have in its nature. Okay, so let's read these words carefully because I'm still some issues with it. It needs to have in its nature the perfection that's in the greatest possible perfection, that it's able to reach at the ultimate end, right? So the neshama in the beginning has to have the possibility or the nature of perfection that it could possibly get to at the end. From the beginning, it has to have the nature of that perfection that it can get to at the end. Okay, let's see. But rather, they tell her from above, go and diminish yourself, ad asher toshuv el mekoyma harishon, until you are able to return to your original place or her original place, bihasaluso al pi maaseha, when it's elevated via its deeds. Right? So again, this is something that he spoke about before, right? This whole purpose of why is neshama on such a high level? Because it goes down into the guf, right? And that's how it is able to then purify the body during Tchias HaMeisim, right? So the again, that's all part of this picture that he's painting of the neshama representing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the whole bria is really kind of Hashem is kind of diminishing himself in order to allowing for the bria to happen. So too, the neshama is also diminishing herself in order to purify the body, to elevate the body, right? So so the neshama comes from a very high place and it's forced down into the body, okay? But through so let me just read a little more. But it's not that her creation is limited from the beginning. And its elevation is going to be greater afterwards. Because there's nothing new under the sun. Funny phrase here, in my opinion. Which is, again, a very strange phrase over here. So, but again, but rather the order is the absolute opposite of this. That in her huge strength, from the moment that it's made, then it's afterwards it's diminished. Until it returns to her original glory. Okay, so again, he's stressing over here the idea that the neshama from the very beginning really is at a great height. Then it's diminished, and then kind of, it's kind of said if you want to get back to your original place, then you got to do this obstacle course called Olam Hazeh, so to speak. If you make it, okay, we'll let you come back and play in your original playroom, so to speak. Okay, so my problem over here, I guess, is that I think before he told us also, I mean, he mentioned this idea that the neshama comes from a very lofty place, right? But before he told us that as a result of the neshama going down, so to speak, it then is able to spring up to even a higher place. Right? Mm-hmm. I think we learned, that's how we learned it at that time. And then I see,
that's not what he's here.
What did you I see Rabbi Friedlander over here saying the same thing. I forgot where I saw it. Yeah, he writes over here. So he writes over here like this: "V'harei ata tayeles l'neshama atzma b'hashlima esaguf." And now this is the benefit of the neshama for itself when it perfects the body. Lihis alois hi mi ilui liilui, that it is able to rise from a higher level to a higher level. Ulehoisiv koyach al koyach, and to add power to power, strength to strength, v'yokar al yokar, and preciousness to preciousness. Right, so that sounds like, right? It wasn't a high level before, but now it can add to that high level, and that's what Rabbi Friedlander said. That through the fact that it benefits the body, it adds additional shleimus, right, perfection, to the perfection that it had from the beginning. Okay, so. Right, so it sounds like the neshama doesn't just go back to its eisono, what he calls over here, to its original place, but rather it goes to a higher place. So I'm not sure how to reconcile these two. Is it that it springs back, meaning the whole neshama is from a high place, brought down, and then it springs back to its original place? Or once it springs back to a higher place? Over here, it sounds like its original place.
Right, means it's created with its full potential, with a full strength.
Right.
So if it's full strength, how high can you go?
Right. So you have the full strength of yourself. But when you then utilize your full strength to benefit another, then you benefit yourself in return. Right. So the way I understood that by neshama, by going down, so to speak, to uplift the body, it then achieves a greater level of perfection by virtue of then having benefited another, or in this case, the body.
So the full potential.
The full potential it had is itself
potential 1.0,
right, and then it reached potential 2.0 exactly.
Okay.
So that's what I understood in the beginning. Now over here again, he just seems to be saying it goes back to its original. Right. I'm not sure even why he really needs to say this. Meaning he's trying to explain to us why he wants to start from the end. Right. Yeah. And the reason why he wants to start from the end, he says, because the end is really the beginning. Because the neshama really started from the end, so to speak, and then went into the body and just has to go back to the beginning. The neshama's end is really going back to her beginning. So that's why I want to start from the end. That's what he tells us. Okay? Then he says the more, what I think is the more simple, Bizval kol ponim, soif ma'isa b'tchilas b'machshava, right? There's a concept that the end of your action is really the beginning of your thought, right? That we say, like, Meaning, your initial plan begins with where you want to end up, and then you figure out how to get there. So in other words, that's why I want to talk about the end, because that was really kind of the original thought, is where Hashem wants us to get to, right? So again, he gives us all these explanations to tell us why he wants to start from the end of the project of mankind, right? The end of the project of mankind is full perfection of the neshama. So, okay, it's fine. Let's move on. But the point is, we have a question. Just, is the end of the neshama is higher than its original place or original place? Okay, but the bottom line is, that's what he wants to tell us. He wants to start with this station, the final station. Okay, therefore, shleimus ha'odam hu hanikva rishona. So therefore, the perfection of man is the thing that was set up first, v'acharav miyuta, and only afterwards it's downgrade. Loshuv b'ma'alois asher yorad boy, to return via the steps that he went down. Lehisalois el shleimusa kasher huchak lo mitchila, to go back to the perfection as it was originally designed. Okay, so that's I'm not sure all these extra words, but the bottom line is, we're going to start with speaking about the final stage. V'nimtza shematzav hashleimus asher le'odam hu shenivchan rishona. So it comes out again that the station of perfection is the thing that was designed first. And this is going to be the way and the time when the neshama alone completely dominates the Adam creation, right? Between the two, the neshama is fully in control. When there is absolutely no control that the body has. It's almost as if it does not exist. Because that body is going to be completely subsumed and by the domination of the neshama in its purity. Okay? Yeah? So far so good? To such a degree that it almost doesn't fit the name. In other words, the body, and in that state, in the final stage of perfection, the body almost cannot be referred to as the body. Because it only has like an existence, but it doesn't really have any of its physical, activities. It doesn't really, there's no expression. There's no expression of its physical reality. It's kind of there, as we said before, that because the body also has to get its reward, but it really has no physical reality, right? So that's the final stage. Again, that's pashut because any sort of dominion to the body, any sort of independence or self-control to the body is nothing but darkness and nightfall for the neshama. Right? The neshama and the body are absolute opposites. So anything you give to the body is by definition something that you must take away from the neshama. Right? So so it can't be. So if the neshama is its in full glory, it by definition there cannot be anything to the body. Because the physicality is nothing but the hiding of the light. And anything from it is automatically me'akev, is a holdback. So therefore it's impossible, even a small control to the body, that as a result will not create some kind of a loss, depreciation to the neshama. Okay? So therefore, Hazman, the time, the time when the neshama is going to be in its complete control, complete strength, that it will not have anything lacking that is appropriate for its perfection. That certainly is also a time that the body has no control whatsoever. And as a result, the body has nothing that prevents it from its. The neshama, has nothing that prevents it. But at the same time, we can't say that the body has absolutely no mitzius, because we already mentioned above, that the reward has to be to both body and soul. Aval shlita lo just but the it doesn't have any control, doesn't have any reign. V'yeh kulei koruch achar haneshama, and it's completely kind of tied to the neshama. Bilti misparid mimenu, it has no way to separate from it. Ki lo yasid dover levado, is not able to do anything by itself. V'lo yeberitzoyno, imash lo yeberitzoyno, and it will also have nothing in its will, meaning it will not want anything that the neshama does not want. Meaning it will be, it's like a Siamese twin, but it has doesn't have its own mind. Again, to such a degree that it's almost unrecognizable as a thing by itself. But rather, it's like it's subsumed completely. It kind of assimilated into the powers of the neshama that are pure. Okay, so that's the first. Again, that's the final stage. Okay, that's the final stage of mankind, is to live in a near, completely spiritual state. Okay, all right. Let's see. Now, then he's going to scale down one. Now that we went all the way to the end, he's telling there's going to be now a time. There's going to be slightly less. So matzav pachas mizeh. Right. So in other words, what he's doing is he's looking at human history, but he's starting from the end. So we just went to Olam Haba, so to speak, all the way Olam Haba, and now we're coming back from Olam Haba. What's before Olam Haba? What's before Olam Haba? Right? So let's see. Matzav pachas mizeh, a time that's less than this. Hu biyois haguf nivchan b'shlitos iktzas. It is the time when the body is recognizable in having some sort of control. Okay? Some sort of control. So he just, before going from the body, no control, now he gave the body some control. And of course, now that we gave the body some control, there's going to be some sort of chisaron to the neshama, right? As a result of having the body some control, the neshama must have some chisaron. Levilti hayoiso shleimo b'chol hadar tifarto, because it's not in its completion, in its kind of glorious, whatever, beautiful completion. Ach hashlita kol shehi, however, so that's this stage. I don't know when the stage is. He didn't tell us, but that's some sort of a stage in human history where the body has some control, right? And the neshama has most control, but yet it's not in its full glory. Ach hashlit, but right. So the body is. So what is the body? So what is that stage? Well, he doesn't know about it. But ach hashlita kolshihi. Just however, he's pointing out that this minimal control of the body lo toilid elechisaron kolshihu will result also in some minimal lacking within the soul. Right? Avalim tar behashlita shlita. But if the control of the body increases, oz yirbe hachisaron. So therefore, proportionately, the chisaron to the neshama will also increase. Va'amnam imnida. So that's this middle stage. So that's the middle stage. Okay, but now he wants to break down this middle stage into multiple stages. Okay, so because now he just told us that since that there could be gradations of control of the body, right, versus the control of the soul, right? So then we can break that gradation into multiple stages. So Zman Shlitas and Neshama. So now he says, I'm sorry, I skipped the line. So however, if we want to speak on this one spectrum, Noimer, then we will say Sheyesh B'zeh Shloisha Zmanim, that there is really three. First he says there are three times. Zman Shlitas and Neshama Legamri. There's a time that the Neshama is fully in control. Uzman Shlitas Aguf Ktsas. There's this middle time when the body has some control. Uzman Shlitas Aguf Legamri, and there's a third Zman when the body has full control. However, he says Achim Neilech B'derech Hadraga. However, if we're talking about possible levels, right? A progression of levels, a spectrum of levels. Lahavin imneichem bederech hadroga lahavin oid matzavi aguf hazeh b'shlitusoi, that we can understand more levels of the body in having control. Chamesh madregas nuchel limnois boy. Then we can actually count 5 levels. Okay, al derech haklal. Also generally speaking, ve'elihim. So in other words, okay, so again, he's saying that as far as time periods are concerned, let's put it this way: as far as time periods are concerned, there is the time period of ultimate neshama, there's a time period of ultimate guf, and there's a time period of the in-between stage. But if we're talking about possible levels, so right, there's still, the gateposts are still ultimate body, ultimate soul, but in between there are more than one level of control, right? There could be a little bit control, more control, right? There's different levels of control. He's going to divide that into 3 distinct stages, such that altogether we're going to have 5 stages. Okay? Now, I'm going to jump the gun a little bit. This is something totally new, just to say where we're going, because you might be like confused, but like, what is he building over here?
Right.
What is he trying to do over here? And the answer is, and I don't really know anything about this, but the answer is that just like we know that there are 6,000 years of this world, that we're working with this idea of 6,000 years Havi Alma, right? That the world of action is something that exists for 6,000 years. So he's going to give us now a 10,000 year plan. Okay? So in other words, you may have heard of 6,000 years and the 7,000th year, right? And then some kind of Olam Haba, right? So he's going to give us that it's not just then some kind of Olam Haba, there's going to be 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000, and then 10,000.
Really? We thought we were getting there already.
So
then, not 6.
So he's right. So he's creating a 10,000 year plan, and so that's why he's creating 5 levels in particular, right? So the 6,000 years is the first 6,000 years, the first level, right? And then we have 7, 8, 9, 10. That's why he needs specifically 5 levels, because each of these 1,000th is going to be a different level in this transition into the ultimate perfection. So the ultimate perfection is really the year 10, what we call the year 10,000. And then all the in-between stages are these 7, 8, 9. Okay? So that's what he's building over here. Okay? So let's see again. So now he's going to tell us the 5 levels that he wants us to know. He's not going to really drill deeper into the 5 levels. Let's see. So Madrega Aleph, right? So he's going to repeat some of this itself. So Madrega Aleph. So again, the first level, Haloi Hishiya Leguf Mitzius. The guf has existence, ach lo shlita klal veikar, but has no shlita, no control whatsoever. Ach shelo yeshum remez ba'olam minyon hagufnis, that there's not even a hint of anything in the world that is physical. Kasher yesh ata, as we see now. V'nimtza shebematzav hazeh, comes out that in that state, lo yimtza adam be'atzmo shum dover me'osim sheyesh le'ata. We're not going to find anything that exists today, anything like that exists today. B'yoyse gufni yeshoylubo, which is a time when the body is, or the physicality is our reality. And that future is the ultimate perfection that can be possibly found. Okay. That's the Madrega base. Again, what's the second level? It's a time when the body has absolute minimal self-control, minimal control. And the person is finding himself k'moy zeicher, again look at these words, k'moy zeicher, like a remembrance, from what he was whenever, from the time that he used to have the body. Right? So again, that's why he's talking about the future. So there's going to be some time in the future that the body has some limited control, only to a degree that the body kind of remembers the way it used to be
in the body,
when it was the body, when it had the body, when the body was the dominant force, right? So in other words, so to speak, it's like, seems like he's building this reality where, just like sometimes you could do, maybe now, I don't know, wake up or have a dream of your some reincarnated self or something like that. I don't know. I'm just making up stuff. But the point is, there's some future reality where the body has some physical essence, but only to the degree that it's like a hint of what it used to be. Okay. And it doesn't even remember particulars, but rather general ideas that it had to begin with. Moshel, for example, again, the parable to this is Limishu Overolov Tzorois Rabbis, somebody who has many tzaros, V'omal v'yageh b'kama haraftiki, and we went through many, I don't know, haraftiki, whatever it is, labor. V'achar nishar toshus boy v'ayefus klal. And after all of that, he has a general sense of tiredness, but he can't really point to what, this tiredness comes from that tzara, and this depression comes from that tzara. He just went through so many different things that he just feels a general sense of weakness. So therefore, this minimal existence of body's shlita, of control, it will result in just one general lack, one general idea of chisaron. Bilti muvchan mashu beprat. It's not something you could recognize into particulars. But rather like a man who has some general, worry in his heart. There's something that's holding back, just something that's holding back from a full expression of his happiness, right? So that's the body in that sense, meaning, in other words, it's holding back just a little bit in the background, holding back the neshama from its total perfection. Even though there is no real particular reason for that worry. So that's at a time when the neshama is not yet going to be, and that's not going to be yet able to find within itself all of the koichos in order to fully expand itself. But rather it's going to feel some sense of heaviness. But it's not going to know any particular, bottleneck. It just knows that there's something that's some kind of weight on its chest or whatever. Okay, so that's the second madrega. Okay, madrega gimel. What's the third madrega? B'yoysa guf shoyle beprat. It's when the body now has some control in specifics, not some small general control, but some specific control. Okay, ach loy b'chol protov, but not all specifics. Ela biktsas miprotov, but rather some specifics. Now a person can find some physical things, certain light things, whatever that means, but they're still physical things. But it's self-understood. It doesn't have great consequences, okay, for the body. As I will explain. Okay, so that's the Gimel Madrega. So again, we're going from total neshama to minimal guf to a little bit more guf, right? Madrega Dalet again. Sheyeh guf shoyel b'chol prota. There's another Madrega, which is the guf has control of all of its particulars, all of its details, all of its aspects. And the person can recognize all physical aspects. But rather, it's a situation just like the neshama today here in this physical reality is like a ger, is like a resident in the right. The neshama is present, but it's a guest, so to speak, in a physical reality, right? The neshama, the spiritual neshama, is a guest in the physical reality. And it has to follow, though, the ways of the body. So too, in this state, the body is going to be as a body in a spiritual land. So it's a body. It has full sense of its physicality, but it's still it's a body outside of its domain. But the neshama has this final say. So the body has its independence, so not independence, but has its sense of itself. But still, the control, the veto power, is by the neshama. And the body has to follow the ways of the neshama. Ke'inyan, this is the parable to this is azalta bekarta. If you went into the city, halech b'nimusa, go in its minhagim, in its laws, in its practices, right? So it's interesting. Again, let me just read this. What is this similar to? To Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moshe Rabbeinu went to receive the Torah for Klal Yisrael, he did not lose his body, and he wasn't changed into a spiritual being completely. But rather, his body was like a guest in a place of neshamas. Right? So Moshe Rabbeinu experienced that reality. When he went to Shamayim to receive the Torah, he basically went with his body to a spiritual domain. Shina estama lasas kimasei neshama. So he changed his ways to do like the neshamas. K'moishe pirshu zal, again, like our rabbis explained, le'olam al yishana odom minhag medina. A person should not change himself from the ways of the country that he's in, that he's visiting. Right? It's very interesting that he takes, again, like a very seemingly practical advice, right? Right? You should follow the ways of the place you're in, which is, again, whatever it is, it's some kind of a derech eretz type of an advice, and he really is making it out as part of this kind of, it's a feature. It's not that meaning it's a feature of not just practically how you should function in this physical reality, but rather it's a feature of the entire kind of architectural design of the creation, right? That this idea of following the way of the place exists because really it's part of what the reality is going to be like. V'nimtza, again, sheishtanusoi be'oisa azman eino nimshach machmas atzmoi elach machmas mikoimoi. So at that moment, the change of reality for the body is not because of the body's something changed in the body, but rather it's just because there's a change in its location. Ve'ena shinui gomer. So therefore, it's not a total shinui of the body. Okay. V'hine adayin ein toilus nimshachos minyone agufa eila. But still, there is no consequential outcomes from the actions of the body in that stage. Meaning, it has its independence, but there are no real outcomes. Because at the end of the day, it is like a guest. Because it has to go in the ways of the neshama. But rather, in this fourth level, that all aspects of the body are recognizable, and they're known. But rather, they're just not in their place. So they have to basically subjugate their ways to the ways of the neshama. So in other words, the difference is where the body is completely negated, and so it doesn't even have its physical kind of expressions, versus you have all the expressions, but they express only to the extent to be squashed.
I mean, if a person has desires, but he's full control of those desires. Whereas the previous level,
possibly. I mean, I'm not sure. Possibly that's what he means. I'm not 100% clear how exactly to translate it into. But from this, so on this level you can recognize the particulars of the body. But anything above this level, you can't even recognize the particulars of the body. And certainly they don't have any outcomes. So certainly any level above, you have to follow the ways of the neshama. Okay, and then finally, madrega hey. Finally, the fifth madrega. That's a time when the body is in control of all of its aspects. Like a man that is, in charge of his house. Shekol inyonov betokfom, all of its aspects are in full expression. Ubechotol the same, and all of their outcomes. The gam zoisa madrega nechlekas l'shtayim. However, this madrega can also be divided into two types, really. V'afal pikein kol madregachas, but still it's all one level. What are the v'zeh? And that is ki inyon ha'guf afilu b'bechinas guf, because bodily aspects, even when it's fully a body, yicholim liyus b'shtei drachim, they could be accomplished in two ways. Either the way of choil, of mundane, and the ways of an animal, which is like the actions of most mankind, or it could be done in the ways of kedusha and service. In all your ways you should know him, right? So in other words, redirect your physical activities towards Hashem. So even though they're still physical, but they're towards Hashem. All of this in order to have kavanah that's directed properly, and which is going to be in the future, that Hashem will kind of change our physical heart, but it's still going to be labeled, right? It's going to be a physical heart, but it's going to be directed towards Hashem. Like the way it would have been proper if Adam would not have sinned. But regardless, everything we do in this world is physical. Tzarech is to eat, lishtei tzarech is to drink. It's impossible without those. But you could choose if your eating and drinking will be mundane, or holy. But both of them are physical realities, right? You could have a holy physicality, or you could have an unholy physicality, but they're both, but you're still physical. Okay, so let's see. But now that we also know that everything that exists either comes from Hashem's illumination or from Hashem's disillumination, let's say, right? So al-kain noimer shakadosh baruch hu machlif hanhagoysel fi mashu tzorich libriyosu lechamesh madregas ha'ela. So Hashem also adjusts the illumination, right, for different of these 5 different madregas. Kila madrega hashafela, shia chamishis. For the lowest madrega, which is the 5th one, hatachtonim mikulam, which is lowest amongst them all, hine yar belehanheg behester ponov. Hashem will mostly conduct himself with the hiding of his face. Ume'at behaoras ponov inhag b'elohim, but only a little bit will be the presence of his illumination in this world. Uberivius, in the 4th madrega, yamit ha'ester, he will a little bit, hold back the disillumination, v'yarbe ha'hora, and he will increase the illumination. Ubeshlishis, and on the 3rd level, yamid ha'ester miyut achar miyut, he will additionally limit the disillumination, v'tirbe ha'ora ribuyoyser, and he will increase the illumination even more. V'chein al derech zeh, and so this way, ad his salois l'madrega rishoina, until finally Hashem brings us back to the 1st level, she'ora tizgaber ma'oid, that the illumination will overpower greatly, v'hester mashehu, and the hester, the hiding, will be minimal, until to the degree that the neshama gets all of its complete control, and the body not at all. Okay? So again, what is he explaining to us? Is setting out this kind of world history, but on a much bigger scale, right? And the way he's doing it is that there are 5 possible levels of this guf neshama combination, right? Between ultimate neshama or ultimate guf, and there, three intermediate stages, right? There's 2 ultimate stages, and there's 3 intermediate stages. Okay. Let's just do a little bit more. So then the neshama asks a very kind of obvious question. Amra neshama, lama hutzrachta lechalek chiluk zeh lechamesh madregas. Why in the world did you have to divide this into 5 levels? Okay. So why did you have to divide this into 5 levels? So Omar Seichel, so Seichel responds, Lefi shekach hu lefi hadroga. That's what comes out if you divide it into a progression. That's how it works out. It's not. I'm not making up levels. He's saying if I want to split it up into logical steps, he says that's the progression. V'zeh davar nir le'inayim. It's something that's evidently visible. Ki kol hadvarim ha'elu yicholim liyos. These are the possibilities. V'hem ba'adrocha zeh achar zeh, and they're consequential. These are consequential possibilities. Mitzius b'lo shlita, existence without control. Shlita b'chlal, general control. Shlita katzas min hapratim, control in some of the details. Shlita kol hapratim, control in all the details. But he is still, meaning the body is referring to, is a guest outside of its place. Shlitas kol hapratim b'mekoymon, and control of all the details in its place. Ki ish soyer b'beis, like a man ruling his house. Heim chamisha dvorim. These are 5 things nimshachim v'holchim lefi teva ha'inyan that generally result as part of the nature of the matter. Ein shayach b'zerayu minyan. I can't give you proof, or from where do I know this? It's just simple. It's just basic logic. He says, basic logic. Okay. So in other words, it's interesting. He doesn't give you a makor for it. Doesn't give you a source for it. He just says this is the logical progression. However, what you need to know now, you don't need to know the 5 levels. You rather need to know the 3 original levels for now, which is what? Shlitas neshama levad legamri, right? Either control of the neshama completely, shlitas tzas shel haguf, minor control of the body, and shlitas kol haguf, and shlita of the entire body, right? So those really the main stages that you need to know are the 3, but 5 is the ultimate reality. Shezeh ma shetzorech lehavin hanhoga b'shleimusa. That's what you need to know in order to understand Hashem's hanhoga in its entirety. V'chamesh madrega she'amarti, but the 5 levels that I told you, yil lechol mishmeres, you keep them kind of on the back burner for long term, for mishmeres, to watch, right? Kikvar yadati, because I know imtzu dvorim b'divrei hachachamim, that you will find, there will be statements in the words of sages, Zal, shulahavinam al burim, that in order to understand them clearly, titztarech lehishtamesh min hakdom hazois, you will need to have this kind of split, 5-level split in your mind. Aval ein kan mokum linyan zeh, but we don't have to discuss this now. Okay. So again, so he's telling us this. Well, let me read this note to you from Rabbi Friedlander, and then we'll end with that. Okay, so I have a note here which you don't have. This is so Rabbeinu Rabbi Roimes kan shechomesh madregas elu milamdois al dvorim amukim ba'avodos ve'aliyas ha'odam. Ramchal is hinting to us that these 5 levels are teaching us deep things regarding service and elevation of mankind. But he does not explain them here. He explains them in Klodim Rishonim, B'Siman Tes, whatever. in these five levels, that are hinted to different kufos, different eras of Odom, avodas Odom, v'kabolas eschar l'madregoisehem. Nimno isam ilmat l'mat. Let us count them from the bottom to the top. So right? Ramchal gave it to us from the top to the bottom. Comes Rabbi Friedland and he says, let me tell you what they are from the bottom to the top. Madrega Hey, so the fifth level, Zman ha'avoida b'shisal v'shnin, is the time of service during the 6,000 years. Madrega Dalet, the fourth level, what was the fourth level? The fourth level was the body has full essence, but outside of its place. So that's Madrega Dalet. Elef Hashvi, that is the 7,000th year. The 7,000th year that the Gemara calls Achad Choref, right? 1,000 years it will be destroyed. So I'm not sure what he means, but I think he might mention it. But Elef Shvi, Shehu HaChonu Lechidush HaOlam. So the 7,000th year is only a preparation to the renewal of the world. Right, the world has not been yet renewed in the 7,000th year. Whether it's going to be destroyed, I think actually it's a machlokes. But whatever. But the 7,000th year, which is by the way for us is Kenegat Shabbos, right? So it's maybe Me'ein Olam Haba already, meaning once you already transition out, right, of the physical reality of the 6,000th year, even though you fully experience, you're still there in the physical body experience, but without full control. Right, so you're already in this stage of let's call it Me'ein Olam Haba, right? So that's the Shabbos even today, to some degree, is a Me'ein Olam Haba, right? So Madrega Dalet is Elef Hashvi Shu Achonu Lechidush HaOlam, which is a preparatory millennium for the renewal of the world. Madrega Gimel, the third level. What was the third level? The third level. No, that was that was still the fourth level. Moshe was the fourth level. Third level was where the body has limited capacity, meaning it recognizes some particulars, but not all the particulars. So that's Chidush HaOlam be'elef hashmini ve'afichosei le'olam ruchni zach. That's when the world is renewed in the 8,000th year, and it's transformed into a spiritual entity. Boy hagufi yebotel v'tofel l'neshama. At that point already the body is tofel. It's secondary to the neshama. Kach sheyuchel l'kabel shnei yachad es schoram aruchni. That they're able now to both receive their spiritual reward, but it's not yet. Seems like it's not yet fully purified by the soul in this 8,000th year, because we're still in the Madrega Hagimel. Achar kach tiya oida liya bekabolas haschar adeis battles in the nefesh shel haguf shel neshama be'madrega beishi tiya be'elef atshi. But then it will is in that 8,000th millennium, or the 8th millennium. Sorry, in the 8th millennium, the body becomes purified by the soul, so that by the 9th millennium it reaches the second Madrega, which is it has only a remnant of its physicality. And then finally, Madrega Ha'alev, the first Madrega is Elef HaSiri, is the 10th millennium, Kasher Aguf Botel Legamre L'Neshama, that the body is completely effaced and completely bottled to the Neshama. Me'oz v'chola, and from that point on, the 10th millennium, Guf v'neshama yisangu yachad b'shleimus al Hashem esbarach l'netzach nitzachim. Then they receive their eternal reward from Hashem. Right, and that's what he says. Then he's saying that Madrega Nizgova Zu he legamri lemayla mehasagasena. That 10th Madrega is completely above our ability to even understand it. Because that 10th millennium, it goes to the full level of Olam Haba, that we cannot understand it at all. Like we say in the Torah, Ha'asiri iya kodesh. The 10th is the holy. Right? So he's saying, "Miniflois Rabbeinu b'Sefer Zeh," the wonders of Rabbeinu Ramchal in this Sefer, "Hu lahasbir dvorim amukim shebechochmas ha'emes," is to explain deep things that are in the chochmas ha'emes, meaning in Kabbalah, b'sofa, in simple language, u'b'misogim niglim, and things that are understandable, umuvanim lakol, that to everybody. Harei inyan chomesh madrigas shediach. Okay. Okay, whatever. That's it. Okay, so that's where we are. So we just uncovered a whole kind of bigger history, and then you wonder a little bit. Again, I'm just thinking out loud, and I have no idea what I'm talking about, because, you know, if how should I say, right? Meaning, there's a reason why it's 10,000 years, 10 millennium, and now 17 millennium, right? It's all about this whole systems of 10 that we have, right? And each millennium corresponds to some sort of a reality of spheres or whatever it is that Hashem created, right? So in other words, these millennium, in a certain sense, become symbolic then. And so, I mean, I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm saying the 10,000th year. I mean, whatever. I don't know what we're talking about. So, I don't know. So, who says 6,000 is 6,000? Maybe 6,000 is 6 million. I mean, once we're talking symbolically, then how do we know it's specifically millennia? Especially if we are talking about, sometimes we say 6 days of creation is not really days, right? So how do we know that the 6,000 years is really 6,000 years? I don't know. I mean, I'm just making stuff up. But at the end of the day, either way, you know, when people talk about Tchias HaMeisim, Mashiach, let's put it this way: they have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea. It's like everybody has like a first grade level understanding. Mashiach will come, Tchias HaMeisim, Olam Haba, it's all one big day. It's all, 9 a.m. it's Mashiach, 10 a.m. it's Tchias HaMeisim, 11 a.m. it's Olam Haba. Okay, end of story. All good. And clearly Ramchal says it's not like that. It's a whole very long process that will take another 4,000 years at least. So, okay.